We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this college football's rebel outpost. If you want to support the true home for the college football sickos with a donation to help us keep the lights on, hit that $sign where you make your comment, and I'll get to super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. There's a couple of articles out there that I want to touch upon. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, early in the morning, and then later on, the Sports Business Journal, talking about how the college administrators, there may be some optimism growing, maybe, that everybody's going to be following the rules. This might work. Danny White of Tennessee, the athletic director of Tennessee, reminds us all again that without a collective bargaining agreement, there are large issues large issues such as the transfer portal. How is that going to work? There is a growing consensus that this governing body, the conferences, want to have one transfer portal, and it could be in January, maybe in April. Let me know where you want that transfer portal to be. But the question is, it shouldn't be up just to us or the athletic directors. It should be part of a collective bargaining agreement, correct? It should be, but it ain't gonna be, at least not right now. But there is growing optimism that everybody, the administrators, are going to follow the rules, and that there is going to be an enforcement arm, and there is going to be punishment delivered if you do not follow the rules. I spent yesterday talking about collective bargaining. What do you want it to look like? How would it possibly work? Because nobody is talking about it. If you have a plan with details, like this settlement that was imposed, a settlement, a little bit of a compromise here and a compromise there, but the House lawyers had the conferences and the schools and the NCAA pinned down to the ground. You want $2.8 billion back pay and not higher? Well, you're going to have to do rev share. You're going to have to do all these things. So yesterday I talked about what would a collective bargaining agreement look like. It is unbelievably complicated. It doesn't mean just because it's complicated, just because it's tough to do, that you don't go and do it. But the people, the faction, Danny White of Tennessee, reporters, which I'm going to hit on right now, what is your plan? What is your plan? Because nobody talks about it. Nobody gives any details. I did the best I could yesterday. There is a reason why I talked about it yesterday. Because, and I really talked about yesterday about NIL. The differences in NIL in the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and all these other professional sports, and what we got here in college athletics. There is a big reason why I spent so much time on that yesterday. Because yesterday, there is such a major misunderstanding on what name, image, and likeness deals look like in the professional world, in the CBA professional world for professional athletes. There is a massive misunderstanding. I mean, it is destroying people's brains out. It is altering the reality that people think is going on. I wasn't going to bring it up again today. I wasn't going to bring it up, but a national reporter, a national college football reporter, I enjoy his work. I read his work. Sometimes I agree. Sometimes I disagree. This college football reporter, college sports reporter, put out something on X that got it so wrong so unbelievably wrong. And he's not the only one, but he put it out there as clear as he's got no understanding. I really believe, I think there's too many people out there who don't understand the difference between NIL and pay for play. I think they just believe people are using these terms so they can punish the student athletes or the professional player or whoever, labor. Before I get into these articles, the Sports Business Journal and Yahoo Sports, I am going to focus in like a laser beam on what this reporter put out today. Because a lot of his, unfortunately, a lot of his cohorts probably nodded their head. Am I being unfair? Maybe I am, but they probably nodded their head in agreement. And is absolutely 100% incorrect. And because this reporter is 100% incorrect, in my strongly held opinion, which you are free to disagree with me on, because he's 100% incorrect, he doesn't understand why all these administrators, all these commissioners, all these presidents, all these athletic directors have formed the Deloitte clearinghouse. There is a massive misunderstanding. I talked about it yesterday. I am, in some ways, I didn't want to go down this rabbit hole again today, but in some ways, I am glad that this reporter put out this post on X because it basically encapsulates the entire misunderstanding between NIL and pay-to-play inducements. And I'm going to focus in on that at the beginning of this live show. Then we're going to go in the Sports Business Journal, Yahoo Sports. I am so happy you all joined us today. Ryan Willie, the Evil Badger, is in the house. He starts this off with a beautiful super chat. Thank you for your generosity, the Evil Badger. Once again, I'm an upset Evil Badger. Fickle needs to do a better job of hiring his football staff. I've never liked Fickle. He's not the guy to turn the program around. I believe Ryan Willie is talking about how Wisconsin is under probation for communication violations. I will give Wisconsin credit. They did self-report this. Internally, they looked at their communications and they said, we violated the rules. So I got to give a tip of the cap to Wisconsin. It sounds like they had some guys that were not brought in and explained the rules of recruiting and practices, and there are rules in place, right? That the coaching staffs have to meet. On-field coaching, recruiting. It was a communication violation. So Luke Fickell does have to do a better job of onboarding new staff members, new coaching, especially if they have not been in the game before at a college level. So I agree with Ryan Willie. The onboarding of the new staff, they got to clean that up. Luke Fickell has got to clean that up. Thank you so much for the super chat, Ryan Willie. I do appreciate your kindness so very much. Now, we're going to do a roll call, and I'm going to disagree. I'm going to give respect to the reporter, But I'm sorry, it is 100% incorrect. And it is, and he's not the only one, he's not the only person thinking this way. A lot of college football YouTube channels are thinking this way. A whole lot of reporters are thinking this way. A whole lot of agents and lawyers are thinking this way. And it is 100% incorrect. But again, PATC family members, you can put it in the chat, super chat, give me a call. Let me know how wrong I got it. Jose is in the house. Fight out. Matthew Carlson is in the house. Go Tigers. Go Tigers. Ryan Brooks. Humble, Bumble, Duck. Happy weekend to you, sir. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. Stephen McNeely. Stephen McNeely, happy Friday the 13th, everyone. Holy smokes. The Osceola Trucker. Good afternoon, Sickles. Good afternoon, George. All Woody is in the house. Bimba 7579, Michigan. John Boxleitner, Hokie is in the house. Stormy Cyclone, Mayor McCheese, Jay Chapman, Go Pokes MBM, Morris Simmons, Gold No, Steve Austin, Greg the Gold. No question about it. I'm looking at the lines. I'm looking at that Auburn Baylor line that has gone from Auburn -1.5 to Auburn -2.5. You don't think I'm focused in on that game? You don't think Greg the Gold looking at Baylor Bears in that first game? Holy smokes. I'm going to be 1-0. I am going to be 1-0. No, I'm going to be 2-0 because I'm going to nail the Farmageddon game in Dublin, Ireland. So look out, baby. John Bennett is in the house. She sleeps very well to Greg's voice. I don't think I've ever heard that before. I usually keep people up with my voice. 21 Bucket 21 is in the house. Movie Time Blues is here. Matthew Carlson is here. Hopefully you guys did not lose my signal. Hopefully everything's okay. John Boxleitner, the architect, Don Scruggs, Chris Kinney. Chris Kinney is in the house. The Almighty Finn, Cranky Tiger, Rod Nix, James Davis is here. The Big Gun Shop, no. No big double cheese. Daniel Gygax is in the house. Dante's Inferno Purgatory is here. Bob Swanger, Tim Bales, the Terrapin D5 Terps, nice to see you. Lee Go Gators, Larry Andrick, the Mountaineer is in the house. Mr. Monkey Says, Saved by Grace, Rock and Rant. Rock and Rant says he doesn't have any. How can anybody have any optimism after that? I for one was expecting. I don't think there's any way, if this thing gets codified, it's only going to happen one way, and that is by the skin of its teeth, last second compromise, throwing the Democrats enough stuff in there just to get, they got to get 60 votes in the Senate. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Turbulence. Jacoba Cat is in the house. Kyle Visser. Okay. I got to start off here. Again, I will, the super chats will go to first, and then we'll go to your phone calls after the monologue. Sorry, guys. This is absolutely incorrect. And a lot of people are misguided in this. Stuart Mandel, the reason pro athletes' NIL deals are small is they earn most of their value via their salary. Number one, that makes no sense. Completely illogical. Those that are paying your NIL, your name, image, and likeness, your commercial deals, are completely different than the franchise that are paying you. So right away, it doesn't make any sense. Because, going back to Stuart Mandel, because college athletes aren't paid employees, their true value can only come from NIL deals. Again, incorrect. This does not make it a false market. It's just a market athletic directors wish didn't exist. My answer, and I am going to pontificate this on for a while, just like I did yesterday, NFL franchises are unable to offer inducements beyond the contract. It's why NIL deals are smaller, because none of them are pay-to-play inducements. NIL deals are given because the company that is given them wants to make money on the person's name, image, and likeness. There are massive NIL deals out there. Massive NIL deals. Massive. But most of them are not massive. And Stuart Mandel says, well, pro athletes' NIL deals are small because they earn most of the value via salary. The people who are paying their salary is completely different than the NIL deal. It literally makes absolutely no logical sense. But this is what is going on here. It is in the professional leagues. Again, in the CBA world. Again, college is not CBA. We'll go back to that. But Stuart Mandel and every other reporter, any other person who believes this, when you sign your contract with a franchise, the franchise is not allowed to give you inducements to sign on that contract beyond the contract. Now, there is some exceptions. There is. But it's worded in the CBA, which I wish we had in college sports. But in the professional players' NIL deals are literally deals that are signed, commercial deals, in which it doesn't matter where you are playing, what franchise you are playing with, you're going to get paid. The company's going to get the value back in your name, image, and likeness, or they think they are. And that is why the deals are so much smaller. Because the deals are not inducing you to play for the Milwaukee Bucks, to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not. It's illegal. We talked about this yesterday. If the San Antonio Spurs they have $8 million more on the cap for the first April. You know what? We're not going to use the NBA. I used it yesterday, but their cap is a soft cap. Let's go to Minnesota Vikings, Dallas Cowboys. Minnesota Vikings are looking for a backup offensive tackle. The Dallas Cowboys are looking for a backup offensive tackle. They both have the same amount of money left in the cap, hard cap. So they both offer the player the money. The player's agent, who, by the way, is licensed NFL agent, and the player, they know it's against their CBA to go and ask somebody connected to the Vikings to say, we'll play for the Vikings, we'll sign the $8 million salary, but you got to give us an extra $250,000, $1 million, $2 million on the side, connect it with a car dealership, whatever you got to do, pay for play. That is illegal in the NFL. It's illegal in any of these professional leagues. It is. So you want to go, so when I'm going to be optimistic about when we get to a collective bargaining in college sports, 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 12 years from now, do you know what is going to go away when we got collective bargaining? Pay for play. That's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's going to be part of the bargaining. The ownership. They don't want, if you're going to have a cap, a soft cap, a hard cap, inducements are not allowed to get a person to sign a contract with the team. It's not allowed. If they're caught, there are massive penalties. So, Stuart Mandel, if you go back to Stuart Mandel's comment, he says the NIL deals are smaller in professional leagues because the player's getting most of its value at the first of all, that makes no sense because that money's coming from two different entities. But the reason Stuart Mandel and every other reporter out there and every other college football YouTube channel out there, the reason why the NIL deals are smaller in total in the professional leagues via college is because they're not pay for play. They're not inducements. You can go from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Dallas Cowboys. Your NIL deal remains intact. It's not an inducement. This is what every one of these athletic directors and schools, coach, they all want to get out. They want to get rid of the pay for play, the inducements. Now, a good way of doing it is through collective bargaining. But Stuart Mandel and a lot of people out there, if we get collective bargaining, those NIL deals are going, they're going to be pretty low. They're not going to be these, there's going to be exceptions. There are big time, there are people that come into college football who are known already and they're going to get big, massive deals. But that is the reason why. So, athletes, college athletes who are having name, image, and likeness deals, either in this world, in the non-CBA world, there's going to be an attempt for there not to be pay-for-play inducement payments. In the CBA world, the exact same thing is going to happen. You cannot have these big pay-for-play inducements. There is a difference. And Stuart Mandel is not even close. I'm sorry to be so... but this idea, I've been called a communist. People are raising their fist and saying, how dare you stop a player from making as much money as they possibly can. In the CBA world, that's exactly what happens. There's an agreement between labor and ownership. Labor gets this. Ownership gets that. Ownership gets cost certainty on their roster. Players get a lot of, hopefully better, way better insurance. They get protections. Now, in a CBA world in college sports, the players are going to have a major advantage over professional players in that they're not going to get drafted. They're going to have the freedom to go where they want to go. So in a CBA world, labor is going to have a huge advantage over labor in professional sports, and it's going to get balanced off somewhere by ownership. I don't know what that would be, but they're going to say, oh, you don't want to get drafted, therefore we're going to have more control over something else. It's going to be a bargain back and forth. But either way, the big inducement pay-for-play era is over. It's over. Again, there are going to be big NIL deals signed. Well-deserved commercial deals, big corporations, a star football player. They're going to make women's basketball players. If Miss Clark, if all this was set up, there are going to be superstars in these sports that are going to still get real big time money. But most of these deals are going to look like the professional deals because they're no longer pay-for-play inducements. Okay, I wanted to start off with that. Again, it's Stuart Mandel's. The reason pro athletes' NIL deals are small is they earn most of their value via their salary. When I read that, I said to myself, one, this is why I did the show that I did yesterday. Number two, I'm going to have to go back through this again because that type of thinking is everywhere and it's completely wrong. Okay, I don't know how you prevent a kid from signing endorsement deals and bonuses when the pros do it. You won't be able to stop signing endorsement deals. You won't be. Endorsement deals are NIL deals. You won't be able to stop it. But there's a difference between an endorsement deal and a pay-for-play deal. You can't do it. The pro athletes can't do it. That's my point. The pro athletes cannot sign pay-for-play inducement deals. I don't know where, I honestly don't know where, do you guys think when an NFL player gets drafted and they have a money slot, right? It's slotted in by collective bargaining, right? It didn't used to be that way. Remember when players used to get drafted in the NFL and you got drafted at a spot, but you would negotiate with your team and there'd be a lot of holdouts? Well, ownership couldn't stand that. So in the next collective bargaining agreement, ownership got an agreement with the labor. They horse traded issues. And now the money is slotted in depending on where you drafted. You get a certain money. Do you think players are getting that salary and then they're getting something big extra from the franchise? No, it's illegal. And why would anybody out, like the Miami Dolphins draft, not the draft. Let's not use the draft because college, we're never going to have a draft. Greg Pflugar, the fat guy from Minnesota, interior offensive lineman. The Dolphins are offering me $2.5 million. I signed the contract. Remember, the NFL has a hard cap. Do you think Miami is giving me another $1 million on top of that? Do you think some wealthy person is giving me $1 million just to make sure I sign with Miami? All of that is against the NFL rules. It is. These professional leagues that have a hard cap do not allow these big inducements. And they're not going to allow them in college sports. So yeah, you can sign an endorsement deal. Absolutely. But Gerald, if that player leaves from one team to another, is that endorsement deal still viable? Or is it gone? Okay, now let's get to, first of all, Ross Dellinger article. What is NIL Go? Why is it the latest subject of debate among college sports leader? Article this morning. The man steps up onto a raised platform, walks behind a podium, and leans in toward the microphone. Before him, more than 200 college athletic administrators shift to the front of their seats. For months now, they've been waiting for this moment. I'm Carl, the man says, with Deloitte. That is the clearinghouse. Carl Schaefer, 40-minute presentation. Though it remains unsaid by those in power, the goal of NIL Go is quite clear. Prevent booster payments to athletes that for 4 years now have been masquerading as commercial and endorsement deals. Going back to Gerald McKinley's comment. If it's an endorsement deal, commercial deal, that's cool. That's great. But if they're payments that are not endorsement deals, that is not going to be allowed anymore, and it wouldn't be allowed in a CBA college athletic world. It wouldn't be allowed. And if you get caught, there'd be punishment. Schaefer flipped through the slides of the NIL Go software system. Whispers within the room build to murmurs. Attendees captured slides with photos. Here's a couple slides that Ross Dellinger showed. How Deloitte and the new enforcement entity, the College Sports Commission, plan to prevent booster pay is the target of much criticism and fascination. Plenty of it shrouded in secrecy for the last many months. But get a load of this. Get a load of this. The NFL, the NBA, these professional leagues do the same thing. They prevent inducement payments to players to sign on franchises contracts. The professional leagues do the same thing. But it's within a collective bargaining agreement. In Central Florida, at an annual conference of administrators this week, the shroud was at least partially lifted. So it goes on to talk about Schaefer's presentation, 6-step submission, approval process. While many doubt the clearinghouse will withstand legal challenges, no doubt about it, it's gotta get codified. Administrators here provided legitimate reasons for why they believe it's in long-term survival. They gotta get it done. CBA or codification. Most notable of those, says NCAA President Charlie Baker, is that the clearinghouse appeal process is equipped with subpoena powers. Arbitration equipped with subpoena powers. They do have that power, Baker told Yahoo Sports. Arbitration typically has subpoena power. And I'm pretty sure since this one sits inside an injunction, they will have it. Officials at the power conferences confirmed that significant subpoena powers exist under the arbitration appeals process. But those powers are less expansive than a subpoena authority in a courtroom. A subpoena compels individuals or entities to produce evidence under penalty of law, such as turning over text messages, emails, and phone call logs, as well as testifying before investigators. Again, all of this is under the watchful eye of what? The settlement. This is why it's supposedly be given more authority. It's not the NCAA running this. Per a class action lawsuit, per House lawyers, per Judge Wilkin. This is how it's supposed to be run. And in that, subpoena power has been given to the enforcement arm. You got to turn them over. We won't have complete subpoena power. But if an athlete goes into arbitration, those records, you can get access to some of those records in the appeal process. Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork, it says it's going to be a new day. The algorithm. Back in the Deloitte presentation room, Schaefer is explaining the submission process for NIL Go. Athletes are required to submit third-party deals of $600 or more using a web-based submission system. Now, the athletic department is going to be basically with the athletes sitting there. They are going to submit these deals. These athletic departments are going to be completely in control of all of this. They brought their boosters in-house. They're telling the athletes, don't take any deal outside of this athletic department, because if you do, you run the risk of becoming ineligible. Schaefer explains, gesturing toward a giant projection screen, that the clearinghouse makes 3 determinations once a deal is submitted. Is the third party an associated entity with the university, such as a booster or business contracted with a school like a university sponsor or apparel brand? If so, more intense scrutiny is applied in the vetting process. Is the third party an associated entity with the university? Public companies can, and many of them will, be deemed associated entities. Is the deal for a valid business purpose? The third party business, brand, or individual must be receiving true value from the activities, such as an autograph session, television commercial, or speaking engagement. And remember, if you can get a lot of money here, you can make big time NIL money. The top athletes with the best social media reach that become, the names are on the tip of everybody's tongues. Travis Hunter, right? Next year, of course, there's a lot of guys out there, man. A lot of guys who can make a lot of money with NIL. And they're going to. Legit business purpose. Is the deal within Deloitte's range of compensation? This is perhaps the most criticized of the concepts. Deloitte created the range of compensation through an algorithm using fair market value analysis comparing similar types of NIL deals struck between athlete and third party. And they're using the professional sports leagues. They're using what they know to be NIL deals in the professional sports leagues. Clemson Athletic Director Graham Neff, one of the implementation committee members, in other words, he worked on this, details the factors used to form a compensation range. Athletic performance is a big part of it. Your social media and following, market where schools are at, the reach of your school within said market. This will vary by school. The reach of Georgia Tech in Atlanta is different than the reach of Georgia State. Neff believes that the majority of NIL deals will derive from associated companies as school sponsors, multimedia rights partners, and individual alumni and boosters work to provide universities with additional compensation so they can exceed the $20.5 million revenue share cap that each school is afforded. Third-party NIL compensation that passes the clearinghouse obviously does not count against the cap. Even those who helped craft the new enforcement entity acknowledge that the system is attempting to do a very difficult thing: bring regulation to an enterprise that has for years now seen little to no regulation or enforcement of athlete compensation. There's some toothpaste back in the tube a little bit given the environment. For example, Deloitte officials claim that 70% of past deals from booster collectives would have been denied in their algorithm, while 90% of past deals from public companies would have been approved. %80 of the NIL deals with public companies were valued at less than $10,000. And 99% of those deals were valued at less than $100,000. You're going to get a lot of submissions, NIL submission from these athletic departments with public companies. And they're going to be $10,000. They're going to be $5,000 deals. They're going to be $15,000. They're going to be $30,000. Most of these NIL deals are not going to be $3 million deals. They're not. Just like the NBA players, by the way. Most NBA players, their deals are like $35,000, $50,000. True NIL. No one is trying to restrict someone's earning potential. But what we're trying to say is, what is the real market? Everybody you talk about in the pro market would tell you that NIL deals for pro athletes are really small. In a collective world, we created a false market. Absolutely. The pro market, the NIL deals, because they're not pay for play. They're not inducements. This is reality, ladies and gentlemen. I want the student athletes to make as much money as possible in a world in which the golden goose can keep putting out the eggs. A competitive sports market. I want the student athletes to make more money than ever before. And by the way, 95% of them in the revenue sports are doing that under this deal. They're not making less. They're making way more. But I just want, when we go to that collective bargaining world, when we go there, guess what happens? The NIL deals are going to be really small. Sorry, guys, they are. They are. If you've got $1 billion booster, that's great. If that booster is committed to your program, he's going to give you money. She's going to give you money in all different type of ways. And they're going to be able to continue to do that. They're endorsement deals. It has to be an endorsement deal. It has to be a commercial deal. That's all. That's the way it is. That's the way it is in professional sports, because they're not inducement deals. And that is going to be the way it is in a CBA college sports world, just like it is professional. Denial, approval, or arbitration. Displayed on the giant screen before hundreds of athletic administrators is the 6-step clearinghouse submission and approval process. Step 6 lays out the process for a player if his or her deal is denied by the clearinghouse because it's either not struck for valid business purpose or does not meet the compensation range. Number 1, revise and resubmit the deal. I think a lot of that is going to happen. People are going to find out what is the sweet spot. Every athletic department is going to keep track of what type of deals were denied, what were approved, help the student athletes as much as possible, work with the company. For instance, if the clearinghouse deems that a submitted $1 million deal should be $500,000, the athlete can resubmit for $500,000. And the school, if it chooses, can compensate the athlete for another $500,000 through its revenue share pool. And this is like the biggest reason, one of the biggest reasons, that all this has to be in-house. There has to be a strategy between your NIL deals approved and your rev share contracts. Your head coach, your general manager, your athletic director is good. All three of them are going to be like, okay, all right, we did this rev share. Now our quarterback got a big NIL deal, and our left tackle, who's protecting our quarterback, man, we could not get him a very good NIL deal. Maybe we can give some of that rev share money from the quarterback to the left tackle who's protecting him. There's going to be a lot of strategy involved in all this. Number 2, cancel the deal completely. That's the second option. Number 1, resubmit. Number 2, cancel the deal. Number 3, request arbitration as an appeals process. Number 4, accept the rejected deal. In this case, the athlete may face enforcement consequences. So you can accept a deal. You can start taking that money. But again, there's going to be enforcement. There possibly could be enforcement consequences. In your school, your athletic department they're going to push you not to do that in most cases, right? Okay, and there's more to that. Penalty for NIL violations, circumventing the cap with old-fashioned cheating or intentional or accidental miscalculations. Number 2, tampered with another college athlete or prospect who is under contract. The officials decided against using a set penalty matrix. Instead, they are providing the new College Sports Commission, CEO Brian Seeley, with flexibility to choose penalties from a wide range of options, depending on the individual circumstance. Those penalties being worked through are going to be significant and are going to be different than any penalties we've had previously, said Michigan State Athletic Director Jay Batt and member of the Implementation Committee. An example of a new kind of penalty is a reduction in transfers that a school can require from the portal. There are others, postseason bans. There are also stiff fines, multi-million dollars in value. Suspensions for coaches, administrators. And there is the pushback. The clearinghouse has made its way to the U.S. Capitol. Lori Trahan, the Democrat from Massachusetts, chided college leaders for instituting a new enforcement process that guarantees people in power always win, and athletes who fuel this multi-billion-dollar industry always lose. And we talked about that yesterday and the day before. This has to be a mindset change, Ohio State athletic director told the audience. We all see the reports, the naysayers, that we're going to go back to the old school cheating and all these things, that it's not going to work. This has to work. This will work if we make it work, Reed Francois said. We need to shift our mindset and make this work. Can it be done? But what if the athletes decide not to submit any of their third-party deals at all? People will be turning in people, Reed Francois says. There's a lot more transparency now. Well, first of all, the schools are going to be really in charge of a lot of these submissions, if not all of them. Anyways, there it is. I just wanted to go through that. I went more through it than I was planning on, but that was an article of this morning by Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports. Ryan Thomas, Deloitte once employed Tony Altimore, so it is totally fair to question its judgment. Thank the Gopher gods he's not there to screw things up now. Thank you, Ryan Thomas. Appreciate the super chat so very much. I don't even know what Tony's doing nowadays. Is he still talking college sports? I don't know. I was told that Tony and his sidekick got in a big brouhaha and they're no longer together. What I mean by sidekick, you guys know who I mean by the sidekick, right? And that is, that just follows a history of his sidekick. He latches on to somebody, and then eventually he turns on that person and buries that person. 10 years ago, that sidekick that I won't name the name of got himself attached to me, became obsessed with me. And that's been going on for a decade. And but years ago he turned, he said, I don't know, he started making things up about me. He lives in a fantasy world. Same thing happened with Tony. And I told Tony that. I had one phone call with him. I can tell you the month. I can't remember the year. It was February because I was on vacation. I got his phone number because I had to tell him something. It had to do with Washington. It had to do with the Board of Regents, the chair of the Board of Regents. I gave him some information that turned out to be absolutely true. And I told him about the sidekick. And I told him everything. And I told him exactly what was going to happen. And it happened. So I'm not going to... I wish Tony well. I wish everybody well that comes up with the relationship with this guy. But it's all of it is fake. So I'm just giving you a warning. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan Thomas. Appreciate it so very much. Gold Black 45. What's up, my fellow cult member? Let the cheeseburger sacrifices begin. Gold Black 45 has been a member for 15 months. Wow. You are officially knighted, Cloak and Dagger. LSU Tiger. Gold Black 45. The cheeseburger thing. Yeah, I'm in trouble. With that. That is going to be the biggest L I've ever taken on this show. If the SEC and the Big Ten don't get 4 auto bids, like I guaranteed it was going to happen, that it was a fait accompli, I'm going to have to eat a big cheeseburger live in front of this camera. I don't know. Do I have a miracle that it might still happen? Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. If the players don't get NIL deals, can they borrow from the rev pool? All athletes will receive rev share. Not all athletes will receive rev share. A lot of athletes, it depending on what your school, your athletic department do. Are you talking about football players? Your football players are all going to get rev share. Maybe that's what Chris Kinney means by that. Your football player is going to sign a rev share contract. And your general manager, your head coach, you're going to have, you're going to have to figure out what is our offer to our offensive tackle, our backup offensive tackle, our freshman. There is rev share contract. This is also fascinating. But maybe you can adjust that contract if again, your big time, like Go Black 45. Go Black 45. The LSU Tigers, your program, your quarterback that you get out of the portal or high school, they're probably going to get a pretty good NIL deal because they're going to be well known. They're probably going to be a 5. If they're not a 5-star, they're going to be a 4-star, and they might have already some reach, whatever. Your quarterback might get paid pretty good. A Minnesota Golden Gopher quarterback, we're going to have to spend more money on the rev share because that quarterback's going to make less money in NIL at Minnesota. So we're going to have to put more money in our dudes in the rev share, while LSU has a chance to finesse the rev share payment to the quarterback because they're going to get him a good, really good NIL deal. And maybe your quarterback's going to be fine with that. Like, your quarterback is going to be like, I understand. We need the rev share money to go more into our offensive line. So as a quarterback, I'm going to take a little less than I very well could. You got to admit, this, if this was all public, if these deals became, they're not going to be, at this point, none of this is going to be public. But if it does become public, the amount of content that we're all going to chew on this would be extraordinary. It would be absolutely extraordinary. Now, I did read where it does, all these numbers have to become public to all the teams. Not the exact number figure. Like, Minnesota ain't going to know how much money Nussmeier makes in his rev share. And LSU is not going to know how much Minnesota quarterback makes in his rev share. But Minnesota and LSU are both going to know the average. I read this. I did not save it. But both Minnesota, there's going to be a dashboard. There's going to be a dashboard, not available to me, unfortunately, unless someone in the college sports world wants to leak it to me. No, I don't want to cheat. But there's going to be a dashboard in which LSU is going to know the average rev share to a quarterback position in the Southeastern Conference. I read that. I did. A licensed agent is going to know. The head coaches there are going to be a certain amount of people that are going to be able to look at that dashboard. A licensed agent, according to the settlement, is going to know what the average amount a tight end's going to make, in certain and it's going to be split in conferences. Now maybe that gets leaked to us, but the exact amount of money for each player, I don't think is going to. No, I don't believe so. Now, of course, Don Scruggs, you know how much Kirk Cousins makes. But it doesn't sound like you're going to learn how much Gunnar Stockton makes in rev share. Okay, let me see here. Now, let me, why the optimism? Why did I title the show Optimism is Growing, however large issues such as transfer portal could sink the entire enterprise? Hold on, let me, I got to take a moment here. I'm going to pop up the Sports Business Journal article. Give me a moment, everybody. We are going to get to your phone calls after we go through this. Okay. Okay. That's a great question. Really, genetics? Really? You guys did not have a fight? Well, that is interesting because there are people on a certain website that have given me copies of you talking about how you and Tony do not talk anymore together. Do you want me to show those in public on X later? Genetics, I got to tell you, man. I did listen about 5 minutes for when you were on the Mark Rogers show. Mark Rogers does a great job, runs a great YouTube channel. I've been very fortunate to be a guest on that channel a couple of times. I listened to you for about 5 minutes. I kind of do understand now after listening. That's the first time I've ever listened to you. Somebody had a 15-second clip that they sent to me about what you said last year when you declared there was going to be a Super League in 2025. You said that on the Mark Rogers show. But after listening about 5 minutes of you, I've come to the decision that I'm not quite sure you are able to not live in a fantasy world. So I'm trying to be kind to you now because I don't think you really have control over it, if you understand what I'm saying. So I'm going to try to lay off you. But again, I'm not sure you have control over all your lying that you do. I don't even think it's a choice anymore. So again, I'm going to try to lay off. But you did say, I got a lot of people, I never used it. There's 1,000 things I have never used on you. I've unloaded on you, but I've held so much back because I'm trying to give you grace. But there are communications about you saying on your own, under your own name, yeah, me and Tony, we don't, blah, 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 blah. And I laughed when I read it because it was always going to happen. It was always going to happen. He's not Western Civic. He's definitely not Western Civic. Okay. Let's see here. What was I saying? Does anybody remember what I was saying? It don't matter. It don't matter. I do appreciate the obsession that genetics has for this YouTube channel. I do appreciate that. I appreciate that so very much. Oh, I said something about how great Gunnar Stockton is. I don't know. The jury's out on Gunnar Stockton. The jury is out on Gunnar Stockton. He was a little loosey-goosey, Don. He was a little loosey-goosey. Look, I know I'm going to go ahead and give Tony grace because how do I say this? I'm going to go ahead and forgive Tony, even though Tony said that I was part of some Endeavor plot. Tony said that I was grifting when we had all the information about the Big 12 meeting in Colorado, in Chicago on May 7th. He said a lot of things that we all knew at the time. I mean, national reporters were laughing at him. But I don't think he knew, he definitely did not know the Pac-12 was getting no offers. They weren't bad offers. They were no offers. And we had that information. There's a lot of things that we had that he just wasn't open. The door wasn't open to him. Just like another example, we did that June 15th live show last year when I said that Florida State and Clemson were not the number one or number two targets of the Big Ten and the SEC. And then six weeks later, all these national reports came out. Big Brett McMurphy article. A door was open to us completely and said, and we went through all this. The door sometimes just doesn't open to people. That's why I don't rag on people for being wrong about something. I don't. But when they're wrong about something and they don't take the L, then it's like they're just being a troll. They're being unserious. And that's what genetics has been for a decade. Have you ever seen genetics take an L on anything? No. USC, he completely botched it. And I gave him information. He had no idea about Oregon and Washington. None. Notre Dame, I've taken the L on Notre Dame. You guys know I've taken the L on Notre Dame. I still think the walls are closing in on them. But when you're a guy who has said 1,000 things and cannot take an L when you're wrong, then you're just not a serious person. You live in a fantasy world. When it comes to genetics, I don't think he can help it. That is where I'm coming from now. So I'm going to try to give him grace as well. That's my point. Gunnar was much more decisive in the pocket than Carson. Well, Daniel Gygax. But can you blame Carson, though? That's my point. How many drop balls did Carson Beck have last year? Boy, oh boy. I'm all fired up for the Miami Notre Dame game. I am. Carson Beck, CJ Carr, is probably going to be CJ Carr. I don't think it's going to be Mincy. CJ Carr, Carson Beck. You guys undervalue Carson Beck like crazy. The PATC family. Like crazy. I take the L every day I'm married. You got that right. You got that right. Okay, here is an article that I want to get to here. College administrators are optimistic in the wake of the House NIL settlement. Ben Portnoy. Optimism. The happiest place on earth may no longer only be a Walt Disney creation. An event usually reserved for handshakes, head nods, and a few healthy meetings between those from every level of college sports ecosystem, administrators buzzed that Judge Claudia Wilken had rubber-stamped the transformational House settlement. It's not a group of peers adjudicating us anymore, Ross Bjork said. That was always an unfair system. To me, this new system, what it should be when you look at a professional sports model, that is what we studied when we kind of rolled this out in the enforcement group. Hey, look, how do the pros do it? Let's learn from them. Now we just have to execute it. The actual rollout of the varying layers of the House settlement will be multifaceted. There's the matter of how much schools will commit toward a revenue sharing cap of $20.5 million. That will vary by locale. We're skipping a little bit here. Then, of course, there's the most pronounced question of all. What happens when someone does, in fact, break the rules? The new enforcement, the College Sports Commission, can be a great improvement in terms of speed of adjudication, of rule breaking, and having more accountability. Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White said, all those things are really positive. But I also think that without collective bargaining, the transfer portal is still going to be a huge issue. There's still going to be other lawsuits. So I hope we can come to some solutions there. Absolutely. It's got to get codified, or some of these lawsuits are going to land. Some of them are not. Because some of the judges are going to look at these lawsuits and say, man, that thing over here, the House settlement, there's a lot of work done with that. They came to some sort of compromise. In some ways, the House lawyers were looking after labor in the settlement deal. We're not, judges aren't going to easily override, but some are. Some of these lawsuits are going to land. It's going to, it's going to hurt this system. It could implode the whole system. Okay, more talk about the Deloitte. I want to skip over that a little bit. Ultimately, the structure and the governance of the commission is unlike anything we've seen in college sports intentionally, said Clemson Athletic Director Graham Neff. And because of that, I think we all need to have, again, that word, optimism, confidence in the ability to manage and implement all aspects of the settlement. And then Bjork talks about how when he found out the settlement became official. There is skepticism about the new governance structure. Sure, Bjork acknowledged, again, the Buckeyes athletic director, as much during his speech to the broader NACDA convention on Tuesday, calling out anonymous sources who have sounded off on the feasibility of the settlement and the governance structure overseen by CSC in recent days. There's still work to be done. There's still be an adjustment period when schools have to feel good about the rules being enforced. which has become a little bit of a point of attention in the last few years. Rakesh Curlew, lead counsel of the NCAA, but the indications from the commissioners are that schools want the system to work. And that's certainly everything I've seen as I've been working on the process of working on the negotiations. I think it's a better system that I'm optimistic, that's the word again, optimistic, is going to work. We've got to decide as an industry that we want to give it a chance. Ole Miss Athletic Director Keith Carter added, and I think it can work if we all jump in there. College sports leaders now simply need to hope the groundwork that's been laid results in an operation that's anything but Mickey Mouse. And that is why we use the word optimism is growing. However, large issues such as the transfer portal could sink the entire enterprise. I know this settlement is far from perfect, but you have to start somewhere. Demolition was inevitable, still could be. My main complaint about the settlement is that it's the same complaint I have about the 4-4-2-2-1-3 model. It's too permanent. It's too permanent. I want labor to be able to challenge. I want labor to be able to question. I want labor to be able to negotiate. Same thing with the ownership, which is the conferences. I want them to be able to adjust, negotiate with labor. And this doesn't really have that built into it. That is my biggest problem with this. But as I talked yesterday, if you had a collective bargaining going on right now, would, for example, the Oklahoma gymnasts, would they get any revenue share like they're going to do this time, like they are going to do under Oklahoma in their structure? Collective bargaining, I mean, in this imposed House NCAA settlement, if you include scholarship, if you include the Alston stipend, if you include the rev share, the student athletes, the labor is getting 50% of the revenue when you tally it all up. That's just in line with the professional sports leagues. The problem that I have is, again, it's not nimble enough. It's not flexible enough. But there are, but I also have to be honest and to say that when it comes to compensation, the majority of the student athletes are going to get way higher compensation than they ever have before starting this year. So you can't just say, well, this is just unbelievable and we're going backwards and everything. No, we're going forward. We might not get to where we want to be as soon as we wanted to get there, but we are going forward, in my opinion. Let me know how wrong I got it. Let me know how wrong I got it once again. Who is labor? The student athletes. That's your labor. In the revenue making sports, 95% of the student athletes are going to be making more money in compensation than this year than they've ever had before because of the rev share. Okay, we're going to go to your phone calls. The phone lines are open. And I believe they are working. 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. The lines are wide open. Let me have it. Let me have it. Ryan Brooks, LSU Tiger. It is ironic that I'm listening to Greg while literally eating a cheeseburger. Greg, pros aren't getting food, lodging, and scholarships. Pros are getting food. They get a lot of food, first of all. Again, scholarships is part of the 50% compensation that the student athletes in the revenue sports they're receiving 50% of the revenue. And scholarship is part of that. It's part of that total. The Alston stipend, the scholarships, the rev share, not for all student athletes, not for the non-revenue making ones. I get it. I'm using the word labor because Chris Kenny, I hear you, Greg, until administrators label student athletes as employees, we're going sideways. Labor refers to employees. Yep. I get it. If the players had selected the Deloitte company, it would hold up much better in future lawsuits. All I can say is I'm not sure if it's, I don't think they're going to end up being correct. But the logic that the conferences are using is the following. The conferences built along with this, within this settlement, they are the ones, as you saw, Graham Neff was part of it. He's part of the implementation. They did not just give it to Deloitte and say, Deloitte, you make up the metrics. No. They worked with Deloitte to build the metrics up. So what I'm saying is all 10 FBS conferences had representation to build Deloitte, to build the enforcement arm. And they think, and I think they're going to end up being wrong. At least they're going to end up being wrong enough to where this is all going to implode if they don't get codification. But I think what the conferences, with the commissioners, with the presidents of all these schools are thinking, because we have built this, and we've, that the NCAA did not build this. And the courts have basically told us that the NCAA is not a legitimate body because the student athletes have not given any authority of their own power to the NCAA. But the conferences believe they have more legitimacy. I don't know if that's going to be the case when it all goes back up to the Supreme Court, or federal courts at first, or state courts at first. But that's what I think the theory is with these leaders. I think they're saying, us conferences have built this. We have all agreed on this. But At the end of the day, it needs an act of Congress for this to have any stability, for this thing to survive. Rock and Rant, can I be an official sponsor of Wisconsin's 1-year probation? And good luck, Michigan, after that. MBM, Wisconsin will get hammered harder than Michigan. Okay, let me see if there's any breaking news going on here. No college sports. Just a lot of just some more talk about Kevin Durant, Houston, San Antonio, or Minnesota. Where is Kevin Durant gonna go? But that's about it. And what is going on in the Middle East? No real break in reporting. There is no perfect. The college football mafia is in the house. If it does get codified, it's going to be like they got to get 60 senators. If you don't get 60 senators, this thing is not working. So there's going to have to be more. I mean, until Booker and Cruz comes out and says, we think we have it. I mean, Ted Cruz said that he's going to introduce a bill anyways. Well, unless Booker's name is on it, it don't have a chance. I'm sorry, it don't have a chance. But it's our best chance right now. And as I said yesterday, if you don't want this thing to get codified, if you want to have this thing blow up, there is zero chance.
Call from
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant. Can you hold on for just one moment, please?
Sure can.
College football mafia. There's zero chance the law gets passed this year. I probably wouldn't say zero, but it's probably, if it's zero this year, then it's minus 5% next year. I think next year the chances only go down even more because, first of all, that's an election year. If it doesn't happen in the next 4 or 5 months, it ain't going to happen. The only thing, and like I said yesterday, the only thing I would ask from those politicians, college football writers, Danny White, those that are smart enough, visionary enough, that want to push the collective bargaining. I want you don't even have to go into too much detail. Just lay out somewhat of a plan, and then get a couple more leaders with you. Come out like a bunch of guys and gals up on stage. Got to do some push. I mean, there is just nothing there. There's no lead. There's nothing. And I don't even even if it doesn't come from administrators, come from all these college. I shouldn't say the name. It doesn't even have to be an active college football reporter. It can be a retired one. If you really believe it, lay it out in some sort of framework, because there's a million there. It is so much more complicated than what the NBA, the NFL, and all the other sports leagues. Rock and Rant, thank you so very much for your patience. The floor is yours.
Oh, no worries. And Greg, I didn't catch a lot of the show earlier. I was in and out of things, so I apologize if I'm rewinding for anyone.
No
but
problem.
How much of yesterday's hearing did you watch or get or absorb after? Curiosity before I say what
I did not watch any of it. I did read a lot about it. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I haven't watched, I'm a glutton. I've watched hearings with you on your live streams from court and everything. I'm in that total like psycho zone with everyone. But I hadn't ever watched one of the hearings before.
Yep.
So I thought it was fairly pointless. As you know, what my take has been on those, I don't have much faith. But I figured I'm going to watch this one.
Yep.
Just because maybe something is fundamentally changing. And, hey, the timing of this getting introduced. And this is the House, so it's not the Cory Booker, Ted Cruz world. But you knew in 6 minutes after they went on where this bill is going. Because I had just assumed, because I figured this is a bipartisan issue, even if it's hard to figure out where the lines are drawn, that the bill is bipartisan, but it was not, right? It was introduced by the Republicans. They did not, and they have the majority in the House, so I understand how that works, but they didn't talk to their Democratic peers, including someone who's a former Division I athlete, about the bill before they introduced it. And they didn't tell them the hearing was going to happen. They told them, they heard after the fact. So the hearing in that first 6 or 7 minutes, you already knew that they weren't working together, and that wasn't just on that one committee, because the bill has to go through the House one, the new one, the score one, has to go through 3 committees. So I'm fascinated to know where the origin story of people being optimistic in terms of that article is coming from, because we don't actually have any actual submitted bill yet from the theoretical Ted Cruz, Cory Booker world. The one that came last year in the Senate from Tuberville predates the settlement being done. I have so low expectations, and I was extremely disappointed, even though it wasn't as contentious as you might think. You sort of already knew where everything was just from the opening statement. So I'm fascinated by that. There's cautious optimism. I don't know if they're really confident in Cory Booker and Ted Cruz to get something done, or if it's just aspirational optimism.
First of all, I think the word I'm using the word optimism. Optimism is growing. However, large issues such as the transfer portal could see. What I'm saying is optimism is growing that people are actually going to follow the rules. Because you got to have both. You got to have people following the rules.
So I misconstrued. I thought the optimism was around law being codified.
No,
not necessarily about the following.
At least
the rules.
not from me. But
okay, understood.
But I will say is I had no optimism about what was going to happen in that subcommittee, because I pretty much every single committee, I think this was what the Energy Committee, whatever it is.
Yeah, it was the Energy Committee.
The parties just line up, and it's always, in the House, always lines up partisan. There's no bipartisan, especially in these committees. And the only way, so what's his name? Whatever the guy's name is. The Ohio guy, Bilirakis. So
yeah, I think that's his name.
Yeah, he might be able to get it through the committee because they got one more Republican than Democrat, but basically that's how it always is. It's always that way. Now, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, in my opinion, if codification can happen, it would be by the narrowest of margins in the House, no matter what is said or done.
Right.
It's the Senate. For me, it's always been about the Senate, because you got to get, 7 Democrats, 8, whatever the number is.
Correct.
And if you get it, you're going to get it by the skin of your teeth. Like, if this happens, it's going to be one of those, just you're just getting over the bar. You're doing so much horse trading. You're promising so much to a district or a senate, whatever. But yeah, I would agree. I guess I had lower expectations than you. I did not.
No, I had zero expectations,
Yeah.
really, but I was like, maybe now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe now, maybe the hearing would change tone because there was at least already, or I don't know if it was already announced when the hearing began, or if it came out shortly thereafter that the first Title IX lawsuit against the original had happened. And I'm sort of surprised, though not really, like relatively surprised, I guess, that the Booker and Cruz thing did not have something completely lined up, knowing what the baseline of the House NCAA settlement was going to be, ready to go, because they do find themselves in a position now that the lawsuits can come, things can get stayed, and the whole next season could be held up in all sorts of chaotic ways. And you're 100% right. If they don't come with something that's extremely friendly or both sides are willing to give, next year is not going to be an easier playing ground. I don't really necessarily think this will be the biggest, most important issue, but there's less likely to be things that are big done next year than this year.
Oh, yeah.
Historically, it has nothing to do with which party is which.
Yeah.
That's just like fact on how sequences go. First year of a president, first year of a 2-year House, all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really believe that the two of them were going to get anywhere, and everyone's like, you're always being like negative about it. I wasn't being negative about it. I was just being real about it.
Yeah.
I don't
tell
know.
you what, the most negative I have felt, and it just happened, when we read the report after this House settlement happened. After it happened, after it was approved, I was hoping that Cruz and Booker and the other 3 senators would have something to introduce as a bill, right? And hopefully the House settlement thing would get it momentum and maybe just some. But when it was reported that Ted Cruz said, or when Ross Dellinger said there's no, they haven't still figured out a way to, I'm paraphrasing, thread the needle to keep both sides happy on this. And then when it was reported that Ted Cruz is about to introduce a bill without Booker, well, it ain't going to work. You're just wasting time. In fact, you can inflict more damages. The House, Billorakis, or whatever his name is, he doesn't even have a Democrat co-sponsor to the bill. I mean, at some point, we got to see that there is at least a little bit of traction. And I'm glad they've been talking for months. That's better than they've all thrown up their hands and they've separated and they haven't, I'm glad they're still talking. That's about the only positive thing I see, Rock and Rant, is that once in a while Cruz and Booker are talking. But other than that, this so far, nothing really popping.
Yeah, and I would say the world events are also interceding in anyone talking as well. So anyway, I was just wasn't sure how much. I don't know if I'll ever put myself through that again. Watching the Florida State Leon County judges was way more interesting and at least a curiosity than that. Again, it wasn't even that contentious relative to other things we're seeing over the last couple of days, but just you knew it was over the minute it started. But who knows? So maybe somebody else will have the solution, and we won't be talking about 36 lawsuits for the next 12 years. But not as optimistic.
Yeah. All right, sir.
All right, Greg.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one, man.
Great call. Beautiful. Rock and roll. Again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and open up those notifications because we can come on live at any time here at Peek Around the Corner. We do not do it on a set schedule. We are unable to do it on a set schedule.
Call from
Nathan Brown.
Nathan Brown, holy smokes. The man, the myth, the legend is on the line. The floor is yours. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Happy News Dump Friday, huh?
Yeah, it's been a long week. But I might be doing something special on this channel tomorrow night. But I'm still working on it. We might have a little bit of a trivia night again tomorrow night.
Oh, that sounds fun. Let's get rid of some of the heaviness that we've got going on right now.
Yep, a lot of heaviness. What's on your mind?
So I've been gone for a week. I got back from vacation yesterday, and I got in contact with a bunch of legal analysts, guys that I really trust.
Yep.
And they just sort of shake their head when it comes to all this stuff. But what's interesting about House is that, like this Q&A that they just put out, right? This NCAA settlement posted this 36-page Q&A.
Yep.
And when you have statements like, we can subpoena people, right? We're talking about I just laughed when they actually wrote in their Q&A that they can subpoena people. So the only people that can subpoena people are like judges, not civil settlement type people. So it kind of devalues all the rest of it, right? And you ask about codification, and I know that's something you and I have disagreed about for a long time. At the end of the day, the economy still is sucky, right? We have a lot of unemployment, whether they want to announce it or not. International affairs are completely unsettled. Who believes that there's any way, shape, or form they're going to get a law passed to protect, or in your words, codify what has been announced in House? I just don't understand where the optimism would be.
I think I've always called it a miracle shot. They need a miracle shot.
Right.
The optimism in the title of the show is based upon the Sports Business Journal, in where the college administrators and everybody believes that they are all in it to follow the rules that were in the settlement that were opposed by the House lawyers, and that the schools and the conferences agreed to. They feel like they've got some systems in place, but each and every one, I don't think, I don't know, I haven't heard anybody say, well, this is going to survive all the lawsuits if it doesn't get codified.
Right.
But none of them are, I don't think every single lawsuit is going to land either. I think some of that's going to, not work, but some of it is.
Oh, sure.
So, what I talked about on my show yesterday was, for those who, like these lawyers, and all of them, who are going to shred this apart, when they talk about a collective bargaining agreement, and they really never do, by the way, they kind of just say, we got to go to collective bargaining. I want people to start talking about, what does that look like? Because I'm more guilty than anybody. I started talking about it 3 years ago. Very first show, I said I want a collective bargaining agreement. I still do. But the more you look at it, 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 the more you lo it's like climbing 4 Mount Everest. It is really unbelievable. And I think that is part of the reason why nobody spends any time discussing or pushing for the collective bargaining, because I don't think they even know how it could even work.
Right.
So I would like, and people in the chat room are saying, well, it's not the reporter's job to lay it out. Okay. I mean, somebody's got to lay it out. Someone like Danny White of Tennessee, who just said in an article that, without collective bargaining, okay, I want Danny White, I want some sort of faction of people to say, this is how it could work. Right. But no one is doing that. So it's like, and one more thing, and I'll let you have the floor again, Nathan. When you put out a detailed plan, it's easy to rip apart. This settlement's easy to rip apart. We know what the settlement is. It has this to it. It has this to it. If someone, I also have a feeling that no one wants to get any detailed about a collective bargaining, because there is going to be a lot of like, no way, that ain't gonna, no way, no, so no one is even broaching the subject about a detailed plan.
I think what it's going to come down to is peer pressure for enforcement. At the end of the day, they're going to control themselves or they're not. It's going to be interesting to see who the very first school is that they accuse of breaking NIL rules, right? The very first school that they accuse, the College Sports Commission and the NIL Go people, the first school that they go to enforce isn't going to be a Tennessee. It's not going to be in Alabama. You know as well as I do, it's going to be like a McNeese State, or it's going to be, some other smaller school that isn't one of the power players. Because at the end of the day, the money flowing is what keeps the whole thing moving, and the rule enforcement is secondary.
But I don't think. Well, and I could be wrong, but I don't think we're gonna. I could be wrong. There's going to be so many submissions, and it's either going to be denied or approved, and then we just went through the options. They're going to resubmit. I think a lot of these athletic departments are going to find out what the sweet spot is in the algorithm of Deloitte, and they're going to figure out how to increase their approvals, max out on these NIL deals. And I think we're not going to know about a lot of the ones that are denied because they're just going to rework them. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if we're going to really know. I don't think we're going to know all this information. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't think we're going to know the very first submission that is denied. I think we
might not know the first submission that's denied, but what we will find out, and I agree 100% with what you just said, these administrators aren't stupid. They've been sitting around and they've been doing the math. We've all generally known what was in the House settlement for months and months, right?
Yep.
So to have it finally penned, I guarantee you there's smart people at these schools that are going to figure out, if you can't have one appearance fee for $1 million, maybe you'll have 100 for 10,000. I mean, there's going to be ways to get the money to the people that they need to. And if anybody thinks that they're just going to stop or NIL is just going to be ended by this settlement, I think you're extremely naive. It's not going to be that way.
Okay, but Nathan, it isn't going to stop. Players are going to have massive deals, but I really believe that a lot of the pay for play is going to be eliminated. If you had a, and I've talked about it a lot on this live show, if you had a CBA, if we magically all woke up tomorrow and had a CBA governing the college football, the game we all love,
right?
The pay for play stuff would be eliminated.
Right, I agree with you.
What?
Yes, I agree.
Because in the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball, inducements, pay-for-play inducements are not allowed. You can't pay beyond the contract that you're given to the player. And that is why it was just reported like in 3 different articles today. That is why NBA, NFL, these NIL deals are small because they're truly commercial deals. They're not inducements.
But there are exceptions to that. You have people that go and get deals with Adidas, or they become the headliner for Nike.
Yes.
Those people inside, they can still do their own commercial, so they can exist within a CBA and still get their own money coming in, and it doesn't break any rules.
Yes, but
it's all within the same system.
But the vast majority of these NIL deals are not they're not the LeBron James. They're not the Allen Iverson back in the day. They're small, and and they're using that information in the Deloitte algorithm. They're small because there truly are just commerce deals. They're not. You can't induce a player to sign a contract with your team in the NBA. And these NIL deals in the NBA and the NFL, these NIL deals are transferable. If you get traded in another franchise, that NIL deal is still alive. But we all know these big monster deals, and right now in the college football, basketball world, they're not transferable because they're not NIL deals. They truly are pay for play. So what I'm trying to say is, if we all wake up tomorrow and we magically are in a CBA world, those big paydays, a lot of them are gone. So they're going to be gone either way, in the Deloitte system or in a CBA world. There's still going to be massive NIL deals because these young guys, these young gals, they have the social media, they're smart, they become big stars, man, at 19 years old. They're going to make a lot of money. And they're going to make BYU still going to have massive NIL deals. It's just the way it is. But some of this is going to be cut down because like a $1 million company giving a player $2 million NIL, they're going to shut that stuff down.
Yeah, it'll be less one-off, and it'll be more organized. Anyway, I didn't mean to take so much of your time. I appreciate you, Greg.
Love you, man.
And I'll talk to you soon, okay?
The man, the myth, the legend, BYU Cougar, Nathan Brown, the Bomber.
Yeah, we will be online tonight, 8 p.m. College Football Mafia. Check it.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Teams are going to use signing bonuses to recruits. Well, okay, that's going to be part of the rev share. That's going to be part of the amount that you pay, but it ain't going to go outside that. Okay, I'm going to say something that's going to sound very naive.
Call from
Randy.
I'm sorry, who is it?
It's Nitwit. How's it going, Greg?
Nitwit. Thanks. Hold on one second, Nitwit. Ladies and gentlemen, these schools, they all signed on this deal, and they're all about to sign an affiliation membership deal. These schools are not looking to cheat. They're bringing their collectives in-house to make sure every one of these NIL deals are submitted. They know they have to report the $20.5 million rev share among all their scholarship student athletes within these athletic. They're not looking to cheat. They don't want their boosters cheating. They don't want their plays to become ineligible. An NIL deal being denied is not the end of the world. You resubmit the sucker. That's what you do. You rework it. You figure out maybe you got to give the player a little bit more of the rev share. You're working it. You're organized. You're working it. Is there going to be some cheating? Is there going to be some bag man? Yes, there is. But in professional sports, there are rules that franchise follows. They do. And BYU follows the Big 12 rules. Utah, Michigan, Minnesota follows the Pens. We follow rules all the time. Most of the time, people aren't looking to cheat. They're just not. I know it sounds like there's bagman around every corner, blah, blah, blah. But that's just not how it is. Nitwit, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, I just want to call in, and you just kind of stole some of my thunder there with the NIL. But I just want to go back and remind people, if you are a historian of the game, what created the NCAA? It was the Roosevelt Commission. And what was the purpose of that commission? We wouldn't have college football if it wasn't for that commission. And the whole purpose of that commission was safety, player safety. And now we transform today, and the whole purpose of all this is paying players.
Yeah.
That's what framework are we going to accept to pay players? Okay, so we've all agreed we're going to pay players.
Yep.
Even though they're amateur athletes, they get a scholarship and a living stipend, and it's worth about $200,000. But you know what? We're going to do it anyhow. And I think once this gets to the Supreme Court level, you're not going to deal with. I mean, Clarence Thomas is going to tear this apart. Like, hey, wait, we were dealing with NIL in the original suit. What are we doing with revenue sharing? Like, where'd that come from? That has nothing to do with NIL. So if you look at the settlement, I guess the positive, there's a framework that we can all agree on that creates some framework of rules, right, Greg? I mean, maybe we could celebrate that.
Well, because it was imposed. We had no choice. Because if we didn't, we'd still be in the courts. We'd be paying $20 billion. And
no.
Yes,
I know
yes. We lost.
They never defined what an NIL deal was, Greg.
Who didn't?
That's the whole case. Never defined what it was. What is an NIL deal in college athletics? The settlement don't define it. Well, maybe it'll go through a clearinghouse in some algorithm. But you and I know they're not NIL deals. And the original issue, if you were a judge, you're going to ask, why are we dealing with revenue sharing when this had to do with name, image, and likeness? They're two different things, Greg.
No, I know that, but this was part of. This is what the House lawyers imposed, and then there was a little give and take on both sides to get something done. So this court case wouldn't go on for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
I get it, but if you're going to challenge things based on law, you can't tell me revenue sharing isn't resources in an athletic department when it specifically says in Title IX those allocation and access to facilities and resources are equal amongst male and female. That's what it says.
Yeah.
You can't tell me revenue sharing isn't resources in an athletic department.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You're saying that all the student athletes should share in the same rev share.
I mean, basically Title IX says that all resources, that female athletes will have equal access to facilities and other resources within the athletic department.
Okay.
So what's that mean?
Okay.
So if your quarterback's getting $3 million and your number one gymnast is getting $200,000, you can't tell me that doesn't violate Title IX.
Okay.
It's resources in the athletic department.
But that class action lawsuit did not pertain to Title IX, and the judge said it. If other lawsuits come in and scramble it all up, That's fine.
It's all going to be encompassing. Clarence Thomas is going to be like,
Okay.
I'm dealing with this Title IX issue. Why are we dealing with revenue sharing?
Okay. That's fine. Have it happen.
I mean, that's going to happen.
Okay, that's good. But
I'm just saying, like,
that's
it
fine.
might have been a settlement, but it doesn't make any sense.
What? But because the settlement happened, you got to follow the rules. If a court case comes in, if that Title IX comes in and scrambles it all up, it scrambles it all up. And by the way, if it does happen, the idea of a CBA coming on in doesn't really do anything because, you know, it's not gonna help the revenue sport. I mean, that whole idea of a CBA kind of blows up. But that's fine. Right. I mean, if it happens, it happens. I'm okay with that.
But I'm just saying, like, at least we can agree there's a framework that we can follow, right? Yeah, that's what the decision is.
It's going to be followed until it's codified,
but here's the deal, Greg.
When it gets destroyed.
Right, but even if it doesn't get destroyed, it better be followed.
It will be followed because if it isn't, everything gets destroyed. So nobody has it.
We can agree on that. They better follow the rules of that.
We literally don't have a choice, and I think that's what all the presidents. That's why you have this consensus, because you literally don't have a choice. Because if you get this codified and you don't follow the rules, the House lawyers are going to rip it all up. We're going back in the courts, and your back pay is gonna it's already. We don't have a choice. If you don't think any of this is going to work, that's fine. But you got to pretend at least right now, because you don't have a choice. You literally do not have a choice.
Right. I get it, Greg.
You know, that's what I've been trying to preach. I mean, it's like we don't have a choice. This is reality. And all these, and not every single college president and athletic, they're not all morons, right?
Right.
But they know they're up against it. They were up against it in this court case. There were 2 other court cases that were enfolded into this one. The schools lost. It wasn't just the NCAA either. The schools are part of the class action. Nitwit, your school lost. My school lost. Everybody in the chat room, your school lost. Now, it was only a matter of how much you're going to lose. And this is the settlement. They said we can do the $2.8 billion. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. And it needs to be codified. If it doesn't happen, I don't know. But for those who want to
I don't know. All I can tell you is once you crack that open, whether it's Title IX or some other issue, in front of the Supreme Court, you've seen a Supreme Court, right, Craig?
Yeah.
You've listened to a case. That thing is going to get picked apart. They're going to reopen the issue. Why? These were the rules when you signed your contract with the scholarship. I guarantee you Clarence Thomas is going to ask that question. Mm-hmm. You understand what I mean?
I understand. That's why it's got to get codified by an act of Congress.
You signed a contract to get a scholarship.
This ain't going to get... None of this is going to work.
I'm just saying the case, if it gets to that level and somebody cracks that case...
I agree.
Man, there's going to be a lot of questions from those 9 justices. They're going to be like a lot more heavy than what this judge. I know the judge was dealing with the settlement and just to get it through. I get it.
Yeah.
And I get it's the rules.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Congress got to step in that money shot, that dream shot. Yeah. I think you got to get some protection, antitrust protection for rules. And I appreciate it, Greg. Sorry to take your time so long. Great show. Thank you.
Beautiful. Expansion Crush is in the house. The architect. Where I'm curious as to where he did the having to report the amounts of $600. I think that might be a tax issue. I think anytime you make over $600, I think if you go to a casino and you if you win $600, like or a racetrack, if you have a $600 win, you gotta sign it right there and then. They give you a piece of paper and a pen. You gotta write down that this is your winnings, and you can either pick. I can't remember anymore. Been such a long time, but you got to pay your whatever. I think it's a tax purpose. $200 now. Whatever. Oh, you're talking about points. You guys are talking about points. Do I put cheese on tacos? No. Now, I will say there are times where the Little General makes a taco, pork and onions and whatever, and there is going to be a plate on the table that has Blanco Mexican cheese sliced up with jalapenos, a little bit of salt, a little bit of lemon on the jalapeno slices, and you take a bite of the taco, you eating it, and then I might take a jalapeno with a slice of cheese and throw it in my mouth. But no cheese on tacos. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't put. No, there are a couple of exceptions. James Davis. So you really don't put cheese on meat. There is a couple of exceptions that makes it the rule. And I'm open for a third exception. I just haven't found it. One exception is Parmesan on chicken. Chicken Parmesan. Putting Parmesan on buffalo wings. The Parmesan does not decimate the flavor of the chicken. It kind of helps it out. So chicken Parmesan is okay. The other exception is turkey and Swiss. Because turkey meat is not in most cases, is not your most favorable meat. So you can put a little bit of cheese in there, and Swiss cheese works. Other than that, no. You should never add cheese to a pastrami sandwich. You don't ever put cheese on steak or a beautiful fillet of fish. Why are you putting cheese on a hamburger? A hamburger is the most disrespected cut of beef there is. You guys slap the cheese. All you're doing when you're putting a piece of cheese on a hamburger is you're adding salt. How about you add salt to your burger? Add salt to your burger. Add onions to your burger. Add a little bit of tomato, a little bit of lettuce. There's so many things you can do with the burger, a hamburger. That's all you guys are doing. Okay. All right, we're going to shut it down. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 13 minutes. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. I want to thank Ryan Willie, Go Black 45, and Ryan Thomas for your generosity. I very much appreciate your generosity. Help us keep the lights on. I want to thank the callers and the great comments in the comment section below the video. We are going to do a live show tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications. Saturday night is all right for PATC. I think we're going to do a little bit of fun. And we'll cover breaking news if there's any breaking news in college football. But I think we're going to have a little bit of fun tomorrow night. So make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications before you leave. Smash that like button if you've liked our content today. A little bit of optimism is growing among college administrators in following the rules. But can it get codified? We'll all find out together. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.